And a very happy Mother's Day evening. I'm meteorologist Joe Bartosik coming to you from the Alaska News Source Digital Desk, where on Sunday evenings we take a little bit of time to discuss the weather for the upcoming week, take a little bit of an in-depth dive as to some of the different elements that are coming together to shape the weather for the upcoming week. And it is definitely going to be an interesting one at that, as we are now well underway with a dynamic breakup across much of the interior. More on that in just a second, but focusing on South Central, we got a beautiful Mother's Day evening out there. Lots of sunshine, fair weather clouds developing throughout the afternoon. Those will now diminish as we lose the heating of the day. That's what caused them to develop in the first place. Still a spotty, isolated shower across portions of the Chugach Range, but 95% of us, maybe even 98% of us staying dry for the remainder of this Sunday evening. Those winds still breezy out of the south to southeast, gusting occasionally as high as 30 miles an hour. We saw maximum wind gusts today of around 41 miles an hour officially at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. We will see those winds gradually diminish, though, as we head on into the first half of the upcoming week. The other big story is, when is Anchorage going to hit 60 degrees? We came very close to it on Friday with a high of 59. Let's look back at last year. And last year we saw our first 60-degree reading on May 17th when we hit 61 degrees at Ted Stevens. 60 degrees on September 5th. Of last year was the last time that we saw that 60-degree reading. So I will say that it looks like we do stand a really good possibility of, by later on in the week and on into next weekend, if the current forecast trends hold, that we will not just hit 60, but probably rise into the lower 60s if all the ingredients come together. So we'll be stay tuned for that. There'll be certainly some good news here for us here in the Anchorage area. All right, next up is going to be a look at high temperatures for your Mother's Day. 56 officially at the airport, 63 for Wasilla, Palmer, into the upper 50s, Kenai, Soldotna. Cool, chilly even in Seward at 48, and Valdez as well today, with areas of some clouds and again a few showers. Temperatures have been cool for the better part of course, April, and for the first half of the month so far. We've only had one day in the past 10 where we saw temperatures above our seasonal norms. That was on Friday, again, when we came close to that 60-degree reading with the high of 59. That was 4 degrees above where we should be for it in this time of the year. The month of May is already shaping up to be already, when you average the highs and the lows together for the first half of the month, 3 degrees cooler than the seasonal norm. Here's a look at those maximum wind gusts today. 41, as I mentioned, at Ted Stevens, 37 in Palmer, and 32 for Homer and Seldovia, and 20s for Seward and Wasilla today. Those winds will continue to stay breezy through the overnight hours, ranging from 25 to 35 miles an hour. So continued seeing some windows rattling and the winds whistling through trees and buildings, etc., as we head on into the start of a new work and school week on Monday. Still, those winds gradually diminishing down to about 15 to 25 miles an hour as we head late into Monday, and then things starting to calm on down as we head on into the day on Tuesday. Those winds caused by a difference in pressure between high pressure along the northeastern Gulf Coast that's bringing beautiful conditions to southeast, and then a big area of low pressure that has been working its way on through the Bering Straits over the past 24 hours. You can see the scattered clouds from today, as again there's a few pop-up showers for portions of the valley on into the Chugach Range. Those will again come to an end as we lose the heating of the day once the sun sets very late this evening. There's a look at that pressure difference between the high over the northeastern Gulf and that low moving on through the Bering Straits. There's a front that's draped down from that low pressure system across the eastern Seward Peninsula on down in through portions of southwest Bethel, all the way down to Dillingham, King Salmon, portions of the peninsula, seeing areas of rainfall, and it's a chilly rain at that, with those temperatures today into the 40s, and we'll continue to see unsettled weather as that area of low pressure and its associated front, clouds, and moisture continue to just hang out across the western portion of the state as we head on in through the first half of the upcoming week. We'll show you why here and coming up in just just a second. Wanted to remind you of all the alerts that we have going on for the potential of ice jam flooding and snowmelt flooding that is affecting some communities across the interior. Right now, flood watches in effect for much of the Yukon River and the central Tanana River Valley around the Fairbanks area, points north and eastward. Also for the Kuskokwim, both a large chunk of the upper and middle Kuskokwim Valley heading on in through at least Monday and on in through Tuesday as well. The darker shades of green, those are those flood warnings and even flood advisories that are in effect for areas that are currently seeing flooding as a result of snowmelt and ice jams. We have a full list on the website at alaskasnewssource.com. Just go to weather and you can click on the weather discussion story. Scroll down to the very bottom. You can see all the current alerts and watches and warnings in detail describing the impacts that we're expecting for each area. Would you believe we already had fire weather warnings in effect for central and eastern areas of the Alaska Range? Those were issued yesterday and continue to remain in effect right through to late Monday night as we continue to see strong southerly winds at about 25 to 45 miles an hour, gusting as high as 60 miles an hour. And that is also helping to cause some dry air, especially as those winds downslope on the north side of the Alaska Range, where that's going to dry out the atmosphere so that humidity values are as low as 25%. And we did even have a little bit of a grass fire around Fort Wainwright yesterday that was quickly extinguished. Crews there on at the fort were able to keep that under control. Only 5 acres were burned, but again, fire weather season already off to a start, even as we're dealing with breakup and even some areas of wet snow out across the western part of the state. Pretty remarkable Mother Nature for this month of May. Speaking of those rivers and breakup, we're seeing many of the rivers now over the eastern half of the state with many of them reporting some open conditions, and then areas close off to the U.S.-Canadian border there, seeing mostly open conditions, especially across the upper Yukon and in portions of the upper Copper River as well as we work our way from the Alaska Range. All right. What's going on in the atmosphere is going to drive things this week? Well, basically, we got a block going on, especially across the northwestern portion of the lower 48 on into southwestern Canada, and that's been driving a lot of heat across that part of the continent. We also have an area of high pressure that's hanging firm across the northern Yukon, and that is, again, helping to keep things blocked up or preventing things from moving eastward from the Bering and on into the western portion of the state, where we have a big trough of low pressure extending all the way down from the Chukchi Sea, all the way down through the Bering Straits and down into western areas of the Aleutians as well. So with the clouds and the moisture that we showed you on the satellite view, what you see is what you're going to get, unfortunately, as we head on in through Monday and into Tuesday as well. So we put the jet stream into motion here. We can see those warmer colors over around Edmonton, Vancouver, Winnipeg, the northern portion of the lower 48, indicative of that ridge of high pressure. Those cooler colors across portions of Siberia, the Chukchi Sea, as well as on into the Bering Sea as well, indicative of that low pressure trough. And we'll see some of this breaking down as we head into Monday, both the ridge out to the east and the trough out to the west, but still a little pocket of energy will keep disturbed weather across the peninsula, southwest, and on in throughout much of the Bering Strait coast, the Seward Peninsula, heading on in through Wednesday. Southwesterly wind flow out ahead of that trough will help to spread some clouds and some moisture on into south central as we head into Monday night and Tuesday. And then maybe even some lingering clouds on Thursday. And then it looks like some of the longer range forecast models are showing that things are going to clear out as we head into Friday and next weekend. And with that will come some warmer air in the mid levels of the atmosphere, high sun angle. We've got the ingredients for, again, seeing those mild temperatures finally reaching above 60 degrees. But as we mentioned, looking at clouds and moisture continuing to hang tough across much of the west, the Aleutians. And take a look at this. Yes, even areas of snow still impacting portions portions of the North Slope, all the way down through the Nome area on into St. Lawrence Island as well. We'll watch that carefully. No big accumulations, but still, middle part of May, snowflakes are flying here across far western areas of the state, and that will continue potentially on in through the middle part of the week. Got to give a shout out to Southeast. You're going to see beautiful conditions, not just for tomorrow, but on in throughout much of the upcoming week. So go on out there and take advantage of it. Temperatures likely to be into the 60s and even the 70s, especially across the central and southern channels. And that's what we're seeing with the Climate Prediction Center temperature outlook as we head on in through the latter half of May, from May 20th through the 24th. Statistically, a low probability of trending warmer across much of Southeast, and then a fairly sizable probability of trending colder than normal across much of the southwestern third or 2/3 of the state, all the way basically from Fairbanks on down in through Southwest and on in throughout much of the Aleutians as well. And as we take a look at precipitation for the same time period, May 20th through the 24th, pretty much the entire state has a probability of trending wetter than normal as we head on in through the third week of the month of May. So again, very interesting things continue to take shape here. Mother Nature continues to throw some interesting elements our way, and we'll continue to stay apprised of all of the breakup conditions occurring across the interior. Please stay tuned to Alaska's news source, Alaska's weather source, alaskasnewssource.com, and of course our mobile apps, our streaming apps as well. You can get all the latest information, and we've got you covered on air, online, and on demand. Please join us tonight for the late edition. We'll talk more about those alerts in detail. We'll show you the full 7-day forecast for the Anchorage area. And in the meantime, hope you enjoyed your Mother's Day, moms out there. Hello to my mom in Delaware, who's probably watching online as well. And again, hope everybody has a safe week ahead.